All right, Alex, thank you so much. Bill.
Thank you, Alex. Just want to draft a little bit off of what Alex was reporting. Here's the headline that we have here. Republican advantage in the House. On the House side, Senate we'll talk about a bit later this morning. Majority is at 218. We believe Republicans are about 231 right now, and depending on how that may or may not shift over the next 28 days, we shall see. Let me clear this off for you and pop down here. Here's the problem for Democrats in this race when it comes to the House. Here's the Republican in red, Democrat in blue. All these you see here, come on, let's go. All these you see here in yellow are the toss-ups, and clearly the Democrats have to defend many more seats in this cycle than Republicans, clearly giving Republicans an opportunity here to do quite well. Let me come out one time here and show you just a little bit of flavor we're picking up from so many of these House races and why they're shifting and what's happening. First up here in Michigan, there is a congressional House seat, Michigan number 3, that we believe is too close to call, but we're shifting it slightly lean toward Democrats. Hillary Schulten's the Democrat here. Abortion is a big issue in Michigan. They've got a statewide referendum the first part of November. It could have an influence and an effect on turnout, and that's why we get the shift toward the Democrats there in that district. Over here on the East Coast, Rhode Island, it's going to surprise a lot of people. There's a Republican running in House District number 2 here, west side of the state. His name is Alan Fung. He's a former mayor of Cranston, New Hampshire. He's running a very good campaign. We are now shifting that toward the Republican category. And if Fung were to win there early in the night in Rhode Island, that would be a good indicator that Republicans could be on the roll that they're expecting in this campaign. Down here in Texas here, a lot of toss-up races in Texas. Here's just one of them that we have shifted toward Republican. And that is Myra Flores. She won the special election here, right along here, the Gulf of Mexico. We believe immigration is a significant issue for voters in that part of Texas. It gives Flores a bit of an advantage thus far. So, Dana, you can scan the map. There's so much to look at. There's a lot of data out there. We'll move forward just about a little piece every day for the next 28 days over here, Dana.
You know who loves data. It's Karl Rove. Karl Rove is with us. And what do you think of our power rankings? We're a month out.
I think they're pretty spot on the House. I'm sort of in the 20 to 25 range, which would put us at 233. The Republicans at 233, but 231 is a reasonable guess. And I thought the examples you showed today are pretty good. The district in Michigan is held today by Peter Meyer, who's the son of the family that did the famous grocery and home services stores in the upper Midwest. He was defeated in the Republican primary by John Gibbs. Meyer is better likely to hold a seat that it was won by Joe Biden by 9 points, and it's going to be tough for the Republicans to hold it. On the other hand, Alan Fung, who's a friend of mine, I contributed to him. He was a very popular mayor of the second most populous city in Rhode Island. Bill, I hate to say it, it's not Cranston, New Hampshire, it's Cranston, Rhode Island. But,
I apologize.
He's been a very popular figure there, and is really an outstanding possibility to become the first Republican congressman in the new Congress from the New England. Today, the Republicans have no members of the U.S. House from New England, and he could break that barrier.
We just want to show the top voter issues: economy 84%. Education and schools at 77, inflation 76, crime 69. Abortion not. It is an important issue for some voters. And in the case of very close races, undecideds, if they decided that was the issue they would vote on, the Democrats might be able to hold on. But James Carville warned this about Democrats running on abortion. He said a lot of these consultants think if all we do is run abortion spots, that will win for us. I don't think so. It's a good issue, but if you just sit there and they're pummeling you on crime and pummeling you on the cost of living, you've got to be more aggressive than just yelling abortion every other word. How has that issue played out over the summer and now into fall since the Dobbs decision?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? James Carville, who's sort of a centrist, more centrist Democrat, and Bernie Sanders are both out with warnings to the Democrats, don't just run on abortion. And here's why. Take a look at the Gallup question. What party will do a better job of handling the problem you think is most important? Republicans 48, Democrats 37, 11-point advantage. That is the largest Republican advantage since 1946 when it was 17 points. And then if you look in the detail about it, abortion is the most important issue to 4% of the electorate. Now, it was more important in the immediate aftermath of Dobbs, but it's a sign that the abortion issue is not enough to run on. You know, in 2014, there was a Democrat, Mark Udall of Colorado, who made the entire race about abortion with his Republican opponent, Cory Gardner, then a congressman. A Denver Post reporter picked up the chant that he was that Udall was talking so much about the issue of abortion that maybe he ought to restyle his name as Mark Uterus, and it became a campaign sort of meme. And the Denver Post eventually endorsed Gardner, which was very unusual for the Post, generally a left-leaning newspaper, largely because all Udall was talking about was abortion, and Gardner was talking about other issues that were both important nationally and important to Colorado.
Karl, if I could ask you a question on the Senate. The way I think the easiest way for viewers to follow this is if Oz holds Pennsylvania, and if Ron Johnson holds Wisconsin, and if J.D. Vance holds Ohio, again, there's drama in all three of those states, you still have to win one other race in this country. Maybe it's Nevada, maybe it's Georgia. How do you explain it?
I think that's right. I'd add one more onto that list. I feel better about J.D. Vance. Full disclosure, I'm involved with a group that's spending $35 million on his behalf. I'd add North Carolina because I think the Democrats are now getting desperate. They have not been playing in North Carolina. The Senate Majority PAC, their leading super PAC, has now begun to spend money there. But if Republicans hold those, then all that gets them to 50, and all they got to do is pick up one, either Nevada or Georgia or both. And as you say, there's Arizona may be in the mix. There may be Colorado may be in the mix. There's going to be a surprise here in the election. There's going to be a surprise in the governor's race, in the House races, and in Senate races. So, yeah, I'd say that's a good way of looking at it.
I'm just curious. Just quickly, Karl, do you think the Republicans should put more money into the Senate race in Washington State, as that one is pretty close?
Well, there's one poll showing it close. There are a lot of polls not showing it as close, but we've got a superb candidate there, Tiffany Smiley, who is terrific. It's just that it's a blue state. There they have an all-candidate primary. She got about, I think, 38%. Patty Murray got about 54%. That's an uphill climb, but if somebody can do it, Tiffany Smiley can. A remarkable candidate, one of the best we got in the field.
Thank you, Karl. Nice to see you. We'll talk 1,181 times more in the coming month. Thank you, bud.
Looking forward to every single one of them.
As we are as well. Thank you, live in Austin.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.